Well, hello, church. Today we finish up our series called Rescued. Over the past several weeks, we have been looking at things that Jesus Christ has rescued us from. It's been an amazing series. We've used Colossians 1, 13 and 14 as our launching point verses every single week. That says, "For he has rescued us from the kingdom of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of his dear Son, who purchased our freedom and forgave our sins." What an incredible reminder of what God through his Son Jesus Christ has done for every one of us. Today, as we finish up the series, as promised, we are going to look at some rescued stories from some people right here at Central Church. These stories are absolutely amazing to think about and to know about what God is doing in the lives of people here. How he's working in people and through people is absolutely phenomenal. And so I'm excited to have this service today. I'm excited to be able to share these together as a church family. I hope you enjoy them.
I guess, I was raised in the church. I had good parents. My mom was really religious. She always made sure we went to church, and she had a lot of faith in God. So she taught me to have faith, and I had that faith when I was younger, but she passed away when I was 14, and I kind of went down a different path. I started using alcohol on a regular basis, and then I started experimenting with my friends, using drugs. And I was just lost, I was angry at God for taking my mom. And so I went down that path of using, and eventually my using led me to criminal activity, which caused me to get a felony when I was 18 years old. And by the time I was 19, I was sitting in prison on my first felony, which was possession of cocaine with intent to deliver. And so I spent a little time in there, and I got out, and I got married, and was sober for a while and had a job, but the marriage failed. It didn't go very well. And next thing you know, I was back to using again, and I couldn't quite seem to get it right. I'd always turn my life over to Christ, when I was in trouble or when I was locked up, and I would always seem to fall on my face. I'd always had this preconceived notion from when I was little, because I'd always hear these stories about people that had turned their life over to Christ, and their stories were like they were automatically, life was great, never had any problems after that. So every time that I would fall on my face or struggle, I thought, maybe it's not real, maybe I had a lot of questions. I struggled throughout these years, and I just didn't know what to do, man. I eventually became an IV user of methamphetamine, which led me down a whole bad path, I was in pretty rough shape. And I met her, in the midst of that, and we both got off on a bad track, and I ended up in prison again. And we had a DHS case, and she had to get clean, otherwise she was going to lose her daughter, and I had to go to prison. And so we kind of split up for a while. And when I got out, I tried to stay clean, but I couldn't do it, and we weren't together, but we ended up getting back together. And I was struggling, she was trying to stay clean in the midst of my struggles, and we couldn't seem to get it right together at all. And I don't know what happened, we came down here. Well, here's what happened. My sister and my brother-in-law and my family have been super great, Like, they've reached out. They've always offered a hand and tried to get me straight. And they got me down here, and we started going to church. And we were just shopping around churches, we went to one here in Jefferson and didn't quite like it. We tried it for a while. We tried one in Boone, and then she suggested Central Church, and we went to Central Church, and I think we knew we were home like the first day we walked in there, just when Ryan was preaching, and just something clicked, and, we gave our life to Christ, and, I'm not under the preconceived notion anymore that there's not going to be hardships and there's not going to be struggles, but we both knew we needed rescued from everything that we were doing, I just couldn't live life no more. I walked around so ashamed and so guilty and feeling not loved and not worthy and not anything. And I know Christ loves me, because if it weren't for him surrounding me with people in my life that have prayed for me and always reached out a hand to guide me back into his arms, really. And every day it's still a struggle, but whenever I fall on my face, I get up and I go to church and I just pray about it. How long have I been clean? I just fell on my face recently. It was about a year, and then I fell on my face recently. And instead of staying stuck in that guilt and shame, I got right back up and I got right to church and continued on.
Well, I know for me, I had a really rough childhood. I was bounced around in my family, bounced around in different homes and everything. And I got sent away a couple times when I was younger. And I had a bad path even after that, after I went to go live with my mom, and ended up getting pregnant with my daughter when I was 16, and I had her, and my mom kicked me out, and so I was out on my own for a while, and I wasn't into the drugs or anything yet, but I was really struggling with depression and just on the wrong path from everything from my past and not dealing with any of it. And then, I split up with her dad, and I was just kind of all over the place still, just bounced around towns and everything. And then I got into another relationship, and it just, that's kind of where the drug use for me started. I had spent most of my life feeling like, drugs were more important to my parents and to other family members than I was, because I felt like, they were always choosing the drugs over me. And then I felt like that in the relationship that I was in also. And so that's when I started using. And after I got out of that relationship, a little while later, that's when we met, and we were just hanging out as friends for a while, but we were kind of going through a lot of the same stuff. I don't know, I think that's just kind of how we connected. But at the same time, that's when my drug use just spiraled out of control. I really went downhill, started using IV as well. And then, probably a year? Not even a year. Yeah. It was probably roughly 7-8 months after us being together and we were using and everything. DHS got involved, and they tried to work with us at first, but neither one of us was really compliant and couldn't stay clean. I don't think I realized the severity of the situation, and that I was so stuck in the drugs, I was so lost in the drugs that it didn't even really register to me that, hey, you're gonna lose your kid. And so I did. I ended up leaving the Y one day, and DHS came and took her. And it was a downhill spiral after that. And it just got to a point where we realized, we've got to get out of the situation for the sake of both of our sobriety and the relationship. And so we ended up coming down here, and we've been down here since. Got into church and coming to Central Church, and I think that was probably one of the best steps that we took, with him getting into the men's group, me getting into the women's group, and just trying to actively get involved in the church. I think has really been our biggest, blessing right now.
I call Jesus the Hound of Heaven, because he's been pursuing me for so long now that, he's the Hound of Heaven. Like when he wants you, he's gonna get you, and thank God for that, because, finally he's opened my eyes to a whole different life, and now that we're down here doing the right thing and, doing our best to walk with God, all kinds of doors are opening,
A lot of blessings.
Yeah, we're going from homeless drug addicts to building a house, a new home. That's only God, That's only God, because I didn't think I was ever going to amount to nothing. That's what I thought my whole life.
You and I never been a moment you were forgotten, you are not hopeless. You have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
So when I was 12, that is when Jesus found me and he came into my life. I had known him intellectually up until that point, but I hadn't accepted him as my Savior. And because I hadn't done that, I was constantly fearful of what would happen if I ever died. I really wasn't sure I was good enough to get into heaven, and that thought terrified me. And when I was 12, I realized that I was lost, and I realized that the only way that I was ever going to know what would happen to me on the other side of eternity was to accept Christ as my Savior and to give my life to him. So that's what I did. And I felt instant relief as far as that fear. I never once again have worried about not seeing his face when I get to heaven. So it was an amazing and, awe-inspiring feeling. And I think we all think that, or hope anyways, that when we make that life change and when Christ comes into our life, that it'll be like that forever. We'll always feel that great, and you will never have problems again, and life will just be, perfect from that point on. But that's not the case, because we're promised that there will be trials and tribulations. And so shortly after that, my parents ended up splitting up. And my dad left. He was still around a little bit, but not a whole lot. There were 6 of us kids at home. I had 4 younger sisters and an older brother. And my mom did not take it well. So she fell into a deep depression that lasted the better part of a year. And during that time, she could hardly get out of bed. So me and my siblings were taking care of each other, taking care of the house, taking care of her, and really just kind of struggling to get through life. And when I was 14, she started doing a little better. And I kind of felt like I was to the point now where, okay, I could kind of rely on her a little bit more and not have to take care of my family as much. I started dating a boy my freshman year, and between 15 and 16, I stayed at a friend's house up until she graduated. I just wanted to get out of the house. I didn't want to be mom. I didn't want to be dad. I just wanted to be me, and I just wanted to get away from all those thoughts and all those feelings. And so when my friend graduated and she went off to college, I ended up moving in with my boyfriend. So I was living with him at the age of 16 in town. My parents lived on a farm. And I kept coming up with all these excuses as to why I needed to be living with him. I didn't have a vehicle. I needed to be able to be in town so I could walk to school, and I had a job afterwards, and I had college classes, and all these reasons that I knew weren't really valid. They sounded valid, they sounded good, but in reality I was just trying to escape, and I was ashamed of that. And so when things started to kind of go sideways with my ex, I didn't think I could go home. I felt like I just needed to stay where I was, stay with him, because I couldn't go home. I didn't have the right to go back after I abandoned my family. And that shame just pinned me down, and it kept me in a really bad place, in a place I shouldn't have been. And so things just continued to get worse. Again, you're young, you're emotionally immature, first relationship, and it wasn't good for either one of us. There was a lot of emotional abuse. He wasn't saved, and so I kept coming up with, well, he doesn't he doesn't know God's love. He doesn't know Christ's love, so he doesn't know how to love me. So it's not his fault. It's not his fault that, that he's treating me this way. I just need to be more understanding, and I need to try harder. And yeah, so I just stayed a lot longer than I should have. And when I was 20, I found out he was cheating on me. I was broke. I was getting evicted out of our apartment. My relationship was in the toilet. And it was just a really, really low point in my life, to the point where I didn't really care if I lived or died. When one night I was just fed up, I was broken, depressed, angry, and I just cried out to him. And I said, okay, God, I'm done trying to be in control. I'm done trying to do things my way. I don't want to do this anymore. You can just do whatever you want. Just take the reins and go, because I'm done. I'm tired. I give up. And really, for the first time, actually gave control of my life over to Christ. And I felt a little bit of instant relief, but within the next 12 months, I was able to end that relationship. I got a new job, moved to Carroll, got a new apartment, started going back to school, and started dating my now husband, Keith.
So Jesus did a lot of things immediately for me that I could not have imagined, and I couldn't have been more grateful for.
And the emotional side of things has taken longer, but he's also rescued me in those areas as well. He has rescued me from bitterness and anger and depression. And because of his love and his forgiveness and the fact that he could forgive me and could let me come home, I was able to learn how to love and forgive others, forgive my parents, forgive my ex, and forgive myself for leaving my family, and just let go of all that shame that I had felt for so many years. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's not easy. It's still not easy sometimes. And he's had to rescue me again and again. And, but the thing about our God is that he's not a one and done. He will save us. He will always come through for us. And we just have to let him. And I'm just so thankful for the things that God has given me, my family, my kids, my husband. And I couldn't have asked for anything more. And that's my rescue story.
There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS.
All right, my name is Eric Hahn. I needed to be rescued from pornography and being unfaithful to my wife. The pornography started at a very young age. Started with the Playboy magazines. I'm not sure exactly why I got into it. I know that just with my family history of being unfaithful to and just in the family, and just never having that connection with my parents. So I felt maybe this was like an outreach for me. I'm not exactly sure, but so it started at a young age, and then it just kept on growing. And then when the internet came around, then I started watching, pornography on the internet. And that led into messaging other women on dating sites and that, and then that kept on going, and then it led into just texting women inappropriately that I worked with, I just kept on going on and on with that, and it wound up costing one of my jobs. I lost my job because of inappropriate text. and I realized I needed help. So I started counseling, and I did that for 2 or 3 months and just figured, okay, I can do it by myself. And then I just did that for a couple months, and then got right back into it. Started doing the pornography, started chatting with women again, texting women. So then my wife caught me. So then she said that, I need to go to counseling. So I'd go to counseling again for a couple months, and then I'd be right back in the same routine. I just kept on going on and on for years. And then last year was a pretty rough year. I got into chatting with women and texting women. I was texting a woman that I worked with, and I just kept on telling myself my marriage wasn't good. I wasn't happy in my marriage. So I just came home and told Vicky that I wanted a divorce, and that I wasn't happy, and that and she was trying to fight for our marriage, and I said, nope, it's got to be better than what I'm going through now. And so, I was looking for a place to stay. She was filing divorce papers. And then on November 29th of 2020, I woke up that morning and realized that I had to go to church. I don't know, just something that told me that I needed to go to church that morning. So I woke up and I went to church. Seen John and Ryan, the first 2 people that I seen, and just the look on their face, like, wow, he's here. I'm not sure if they knew what was going on or not, but just to see their faces and just to even say hi to me still, and just made me feel welcome still was awesome. I just remember sitting and listening to the sermon and just crying the whole time, like I needed to change, like something in me needed to change, and that I can't throw my marriage away for nothing. So I came home that day, and I asked Vicky if there's any way that we could work things out, and so we talked a long time and for days and that, and she gave me the ultimatum to get help and stick with it and stay with it. And so I started going to counseling in Des Moines. I did that for a couple months by myself, and then Vicky started coming with me, and just even though it was like I was getting picked on or whatever, but they were hitting the points where I knew that I needed to start being open and honest. So just being honest with my wife, it's helped out a lot. And just on the way, I had Gary was always there trying to help me out, and I just kept on pushing him away. And then after I told him I was getting help and wanted to work things out, he was still by my side, and that's awesome that a guy like that could stand by somebody like me. So that's made me feel really good. So then, our marriage since then has been a lot better. We find time for each other. I've been doing a Freedom Fight men's group in Des Moines on Monday nights. It's really helped me out. It's really taught me that I needed to have Jesus in my life, and that you just can't do this all alone. It's tough trying to do it by yourself, and then have a group of guys that I meet with and is going through the same thing that I'm going through. It's great to know that. It's great to have a guy like Gary that I can come to when I'm struggling, and he just helps me out so much. So I appreciate that. And I couldn't have done it without Jesus. I couldn't have done it without Central Church, without Gary, and especially without my wife and kids. To stand by me through all my struggles. It's been awesome that they will stand by me and still believe in me.
I will send out an army to find you
Hello friends, my name is Autumn. I'm 23 years old and I am grateful to share my testimony with you guys on what the Lord's done in my life. He's been very faithful. It started when I was younger. We'd go to church on holidays and just kind of do what the norm was, you know, socially, and I never felt like we were all in for Christ. I didn't know what that meant at the time. And at the age of 8, I was baptized. I didn't know how to love Jesus, but I knew he loved me. And I did take, you know, classes before I was baptized to make sure that I understood everything with the baptism. Ultimately, looking back, I can't recall any of the knowledge from the Bible referring to why I was getting baptized, besides I knew it was the thing to do. After leaving that church and moving to further my parents' careers, going through and out of school, not having many friends. When I came to Carroll as a freshman, I had a desire to have friends. I had a desire to be wanted, and through that, I wasn't accepted in the high school, and the friends that I made were either students that had dropped out, or they were ones that weren't in school. They were older, which led to engaging in substances, and it started with alcohol, and then it became pills, and ultimately went to other drugs. Ultimately, because I wanted to be accepted, I wanted people to like me, and not knowing that that was going to truly have a huge hindrance in my life. Age of 15, I was in my first grade. I was in a house with a few people, just having a night. I had snuck out, and that was my normal thing. I snuck out every night to get high, to engage in just bad behavior. Many things I can recall that just were by the skin of my teeth. I don't know how I wasn't in like a detention center or any of that sorts. I did end up going on probation. I had an ankle monitor, and just calling it close with everything, calling it close with my life, calling it close with my family. Eventually, I decided that I was going to fight this fight on my own, leaving home, getting into relationships that were ended up being very abusive, not knowing how to get out, feeling stuck, overdosing. It's been a long journey, and October of 2020 is when I decided that I was just done with being sick. I had been on medications since I was 15, dealing with my mentality and what I thought of myself, you know, being suicidal, not sure what my purpose was in life, not sure where I was going to go, and just numbing everything that I could, going to different psychiatrists, figuring out what was going to ultimately numb me the most, and being on, you know, psychological meds. It was hard, never finding what I needed, that void in my heart, never having that full, just trying to fill it with whatever I could. I lost my job in October of 2020, trying to figure out what I was going to do. I decided to look into a recovery program, and that brought me to Rockford, Illinois, at a place called Reformers Unanimous, and it was a ladies' school of discipleship. And when I called up all these places all over the United States, the RU, the Reformers Unanimous, was the first place to recite a verse to me, and that really just had a huge impact on me. I was like, okay, that's where I need to go. That's where the Lord was leading me. So with that, I went to Rockford, not having anyone there, not knowing anything, not knowing what I was getting myself into, and I didn't see my mom for 3 months on my first visit, and kind of just worked my way, and eventually I graduated 8 months later. I was there for almost 11 months is what it amounts to. I felt leading to come home, and while I was in the program, they taught us biblical truths, biblical tools. We attended church Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday twice, and we had chapel 5 times a week. We did devotionals every morning. It was totally engaged in the Bible, in God's Word, and that's where I have victory, is in Jesus. He is the only reason I'm sitting here today giving this testimony. Without His Word, without memorizing and holding it in my heart and it being my only offense mechanism towards the enemy, I would have nothing. The Bible is my tool. It holds me accountable. It pierces and divides the asunder of the thoughts and intents of my heart. I don't know where I would be without going to that program, without the Lord's leading in my life to truly just plunge myself in His Word. I had to come to the end of myself to fully be filled with Him. And that's where I'm at today, and I'm so very grateful that He's given me a new life in Him, that I'm a new creature in Christ. And I pray that I may glorify Him when I get to heaven, that He may say, "Well done, a good, thou faithful servant."
I hear the whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing left. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. Oh, I will rescue you.
Hello guys and gals, hope you guys are having a good day, and all the information you're getting out of these videos of people being saved is hopefully going to help you in your journey and walk with the Lord. Yeah, I'm telling my story today and in kind of the same hopes that you'll get a little tidbit of information from me on what maybe not to do. And my kind of story of being rescued, it's over many, many years of me being rescued and coming to the Lord. You know, it kind of started out kind of back when my father died. You know, I still was pretty self-centered and looking out for myself, and just kind of being not the best husband and human being and father I could have been. And then when my father passed away, that kind of was a catalyst that set me on the road, down and down a road that nobody should go. I started having an affair, and it lasted for many years. You know, I was good at hiding it. I was good at lying. I was good at doing whatever I needed to do to satisfy myself, to get what I needed. Didn't matter who I was hurting. My conscience really was not even there anymore. You know, as the years went on, as this went on for many years, it started to put a strain on my marriage. I don't want to say I started to get careless, but I evidently did. You know, the affair got found out. Things went from bad to worse. She moved out. She ended up getting her own house. We separated. We probably didn't talk for, I don't know, a year or so, maybe longer. And then we finally started talking again a little bit. And she'd been going to Central for a while because she was obviously hurting herself, and she was trying to find some help for herself. As we got to talking more, she asked me if I wanted to go. You know, she asked me 4 or 5 times before I finally accepted her offer. because I was kind of at that point too, to where I knew I needed something. If in order to fix my marriage, I needed something more than what I could do myself. And we knew we both couldn't do it ourselves. So I ended up going one Sunday. And it was that moment. After the sermon was over, I turned to her and asked her, I said, did you know this is what the pastor was going to talk about? And she was like, no, I had no idea. And it was that moment, it was, okay, this is where I need to be. This is what I need to do. And we just started to keep going to church. And then we started getting along better. Our marriage started improving. We went to a marriage class there the church provided. And things just started getting better. You know, we still were separated for a couple years, but working on the marriage. And, you know, then we decided, both of us, to get baptized. But for me, that day that I got baptized was probably the turning point to where in my life he was telling me, this is what you need to do, and this is going to help you the most. So I got baptized, we both did, and from there is when he really took a hold of my life. And it was just a defining moment for me. And I remember when I got baptized and the pastor was with me in the pool. He said, "There's nothing God can't do." And he was right. There isn't nothing that God can't do for you. And from there, it just got better in my life. Jesus started working more in me, taking a hold of me and guiding me to make me the better person that I am, to just keep pushing me in my faith and in my love of Him, and becoming more of a better steward of what God has given me, and just a better man in general that everybody needs to be. You know, from there, it's just been the one thing after another he pushes me to. Is, I do the Wednesday night live thing on Facebook with Gary, and that's been something I would have never dreamed that I was ever going to do. You know, I would have never dreamed that I would be comfortable telling you guys my story, because it's something that I felt ashamed, and it's just something that most people don't want to tell. But I'm hoping that this story that I'm telling will give you some information of maybe what not to do, and that following Jesus Christ and making Him your Lord and Savior is the best thing in your life that you can do. Because if He can save somebody like me, who was having an affair, just being a jerk, lying, self-centered person, and keep turning me into a better man, He can do the same thing for you, no matter who you are, where you've been, or what you've done, because I know that He can save you also. So that's my story.
Weren't those stories absolutely incredible? It's amazing what God does in and through His people, is it not? If you're looking for a rescue, I would invite you to stop running, to just cry out to Jesus and let Him be your rescue story as well.